Good afternoon. It is not a Friday. We're actually recording this on a Thursday. My favorite Thursday of the year, by the way. It's March Madness started today. So hopefully you took a break from the games to come check it out. We're doing this a day early as there's some scheduling conflicts next tomorrow as part of it. And so we wanted to make sure we got in and got the update in today. I'm Josh Askvig, State Director of AARP. With me as always, Janelle Mose.
Yeah, you caused quite a stir on the House floor today with the outfit you had on. He took away from all the attention of the issues at hand and drew attention to Arizona basketball today on the House floor. So
it's just a conversation starter. It allowed me to talk to some folks who normally wouldn't talk to me probably, but they were happy to do so. Yeah, exciting. It's been a busy week, as always, and I had the chance to get back up there again this week, so that was good as part of it. Let's talk maybe a little bit about this week as part of it, and let's jump in first with one of the issues we've been working on around trying to keep people safe and independent in their home and working on the homestead property tax credit. I know there were, I think, 2 hearings this week, 2 different days, but kind of synopsize what happened this week on that.
Well, it was 2 different days, 2 different bills, 1 House bill, 1 Senate bill, but we said the same thing. The homestead property tax credit is a really key piece of keeping folks in their homes. Often we hear from people that they've paid their houses off, but their property taxes continue to be really burdensome for them. But the homestead property tax credit really allows them to remain in their home and their community longer. And these targeted tax programs really help folks look at, but both bills really look at expanding access to the homestead tax credit and making sure more people are eligible to apply for it. I think that was the biggest thing both committees said was, how come more people don't do this? And I think it's a situation where the more that people know about it, the more I think people will take access to it. So
absolutely. And on that, if you need help or you're looking for it, we know it's tax season right now. And thank you, by the way, if any of you are tax aid volunteers watching, appreciate the hard work you're doing right now to help folks get their taxes done as part of it. But if you need additional information on the homestead property tax credit as it exists today, so this is not about the expansion. The bills would expand eligibility as well as remove the asset test. That's another key provision. But if you need assistance today, you can find more at tax.nd.gov/homestead or contact your local county auditor. They should be able to help you as well. So with that, let's move on. I also know, I think today you were probably watching items 6 through 13 of voting bills, or a lot of voting, and nothing that we're weighing in on specifically, but we're keeping a close eye given all of our voter engagement work.
Yeah, there were 6 different voting and election bills up this morning in Senate, state and local government, and most of them just make minor tweaks to language related to voting access. And the reason we watch it so closely is we want to make sure that you know how to vote, when to vote, where to vote, and we want to make it as easy as possible. I mean, North Dakota really does make it easy for everybody that wants to vote, and these bills just make minor changes, little enhancements, and so we're just there to make sure that you can continue to have access for that. So
yeah, absolutely. We have weighed in on voting bills in the past, and if something creeps up that we need to weigh in on this session, we'll do that. And I think it's really important to keep in front of us. We know how important the right to vote is for folks, and making sure people have access to the ballot as part of it. Then last, there was kind of a surprise discussion that happened this week. I think it was Tuesday of this week. I think you alerted me to it, and I know we were busy yesterday and today kind of having this, but the House Industry, Business, and Labor Committee, I think I got that right, because the Senate is just the Industry and Business Committee now, had a discussion about our fraud restitution fund bill. Maybe just kind of boil it down into what we heard from the committee and where things are at as of today. And sneak peek, this might be foreshadowing what we're going to ask you to take some action on in a little bit. So,
a couple of weeks ago, the Senate Bill 2325 was heard in the committee, and it usually takes a couple of days for them to come back to the bill if they haven't voted on it right away. And so they did some committee work on it on Tuesday, and it's kind of hit just a minor snag. There's some questions about, access to the restitution fund. Should there be equal access to it? There's also some questions about, some constitutionality of it. So right now it's hit a snag. They did amend the bill as well, because it would be a new program,
right,
and it sunsets. It would be a 4-year program, so it would sunset in 4 years. And again, a lot of legislation often gets sunsets when they're new, just to
Mhm.
try them on, see how they work, see if they need to make adjustments during that next legislative session. So right now where it stands, it's the committee did adopt the amendments that adds the sunset clause. We suspect they'll take some action on it early next week. But
Yeah, and I do know, and a big shout out to Senator Judy Lee. I know she's getting an answer on the constitutionality. I don't foresee that. There are victim restitution funds across the state as part of it, and so I know that's a concern we've heard. And if you talk to your legislator and they raise that, I think you can just remind them the Department of Corrections has a number of victim restitution funds. There are these types of funds all over. I don't want to say all over, but in state government today in North Dakota, and so I'm not an attorney. I'm not a constitutional expert, but I think that we'll be okay on that piece of it as
some of
well.
these funds
So,
have been around since the early 80s. So
right,
there's a lot of precedence in the state
right,
for when victims of crime come forward, report the crime. There's a process that's often created. So the Department of Corrections often creates rulemaking
right,
and says who's eligible for the fund. This bill also allows the Securities Department to really set forth who would be eligible for
correct.
this, setting limitations to it. So there's some safeguards around those types of things. So I think we'll just have to wait and see a couple of days, but I think we're still in good shape. So.
I agree. And if you have a legislator who's on the industry and House Industry and Business and Labor Committee, encourage you to reach out to them, especially as part of that. So let's punt ahead and look at next week. It's a little hard to look too far into next week, given that we're doing this on Thursday afternoon instead of Friday afternoon. Most of the committee hearing schedules get published later this evening, so that's why we normally do this on Friday, but doing this a day early. However, we know a couple of things that we're going to be focusing on next week and really digging in on. And the first one is Senate Bill 2140, which is the insulin cap bill. Seems to be be a big topic of conversation at the Capitol, at least around prescription drugs issues right now.
Yeah, and we suspect the committee will take that up early next week, but there seems to be a
Which committee
groundswell.
is it in
This is in
first?
House Human Services.
Yep.
And so the committee seems to be leaning in our favor in terms of seeing this as an important step in terms of helping folks that are insulin dependent. So this again would cap the out-of-pocket expenses for folks that need insulin at $25. It also covers those medical supplies. Again, this isn't going to drastically change the cost of
Right.
medicine overall in North Dakota,
Right.
but I think, and it's limited to public employees under the PERS plan, but it does have language in there that could expand it to the private market, in coming years. So again, this is a step forward. I think it helps to really shine a light on. This is something people have to often decide life or death. Insulin's a really vital prescription drug to folks. So it's going to come up in committee for discussion, and we're hoping to really encourage that committee to adopt this bill and move it forward to the full House.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you, I think, adeptly stated, it's not the broader prescription drug reform that needs to happen in the state of North Dakota, but for the approximately 59,000 North Dakotans that have diabetes, for the other probably couple thousand folks that are undiagnosed with diabetes, never mind the thousands of North Dakotans with prediabetes, and knowing 45 to 50-year-olds are the fastest growing segment of folks with diabetes. This is an important issue and a step North Dakota can take to, again, continue the effort to try and put downward pressure on prescription drugs. Obviously, this will not solve it for everyone, but I do think it's important. And I do think the bill is worded in a very important way. It doesn't say shall consider bringing forward a bill next session. If this bill is adopted next session, we'll have a broader bill that would cover everybody as part of it. I do just want to touch on this because I think it's important for folks to hear. There has been some news about a couple of pharmaceutical manufacturers announcing they're implementing their own caps or price reductions, I guess is the way to say it. And I think that's important and good progress.
Yeah.
But those aren't going to cover all insulin products. They're not going to cover all folks, even all of their insulin products necessarily. And it's not going to cover everybody. And so, again, the state has a role to play in this, and 2140 should pass and needs to pass as part of it. So we also know, you already touched on this a little bit, but the victim restitution fund, fraud victim restitution fund, excuse me, is going to be discussed. We're pretty sure that's going to come out next week. I mean, I got a good sense in my conversations this morning with legislators when they weren't talking about my outfit. She's not wrong about that. That bill's coming out of committee next week.
Yeah, it should be discussed and they should vote on it early next week. Again, that's Senate Bill 2325. It's in House Industry, Business and Labor. There seems to be a really good momentum shift behind that bill. A
Yep.
lot of the legislators you and
Correct.
I both talked to
Yep.
that are on that committee think that it's a really important step for folks that are victimized. And we know it's very limited in scope, but it's still going to really prevent potential relief for folks that are victims of investment and securities fraud. So we're hoping the committee sees that in a favorable light as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last, I had a conversation with a legislator who has some jurisdiction over one of the pension bills today. I know pensions is on our list for next week of things that we're probably going to be working on and talking about, but I don't think there's going to be any significant movement in the next week or two on pensions. Do you? I mean, this seems like we're headed for the long game on this.
Yeah, I anticipate pensions will be really sitting in both committees. There's House Bill 1040, which is in state and local government on the Senate side. That would, get rid of the defined benefit plan. That was heard in employee benefits earlier this week. So when they make changes to bills, they actually have to go look again, how much is that going to cost the state? So there's a lot of moving pieces to this, and there could be some amendments to that bill.
Yep.
And then the other bill, Senate Bill 239, which is the one we support because it keeps that defined benefit intact. They're just going to wait and see. I think the other thing that we talked about last week was the revised revenue forecast
Correct.
that came out this week. There haven't been a lot of details about where the state currently sits financially, but we know that there are big price tags to both of those bills.
Yep.
So they're going to have to wait to really sort some of the dollars out before they make some big changes or big steps forward to either passing those bills or killing them.
Yeah, I do think it's important though, if that's an issue you're concerned about, we're continuing to work on it, but also talk to your legislators. I think that will make or break this issue. I think, we clearly have the Senate seems to have had one position, the House seems to have had another. And when that happens, oftentimes these things end up in the conference committee. And I think I said it during our legislative lowdown presentation. I think this is one of the issues that's going to keep them here until they leave. Like, this is the issue. I think one of the probably 2 or 3 issues that they're going to have to work through and figure out how it ends up. And obviously, which direction we're pushing on that. So we do have a couple issues we want folks to take action on, specifically the insulin cap bill and the restitution fund. Anything else you want to say about those?
No, just if you have legislators, and we'll make sure we have that information posted on our advocacy page on our website. But if you have legislators on the House Human Services Committee, encourage them to support the insulin cap bill. If you have folks on the Industry, Business and Labor Committee, also on the House side, it really push them forward and say that restitution bill is a good bill for fraud victims. So.
Yeah, I think the other thing on the insulin cap bill for sure, even if your legislator's not on that committee, emailing your legislator about the importance of that bill and moving it forward, that is probably one of the only steps the legislature is likely going to do on prescription drugs. We can talk more about that maybe next week, but it looks like that's kind of what's out there remaining at this point in time, barring any significant changes. So, okay, before we get out of here, I know you're excited because it's March, because it's almost softball season and baseball season.
Yes.
We have this fight back and forth. I'm excited because it's March. Obviously, you can see my outfit. You don't even see all of it. I had a red sport coat on that I wear as always.
Shoes.
I have Arizona everything today. I am a true Arizona socks even, right? I'm a true Arizona fanatic as part of it. And for those of you watching, you probably don't care, but it's fun. We always do a little in-office bracket pool. As we do a women's bracket pool, we do a men's bracket pool as part of it. I have not gone in to look. Everyone should be able to see now as part of it. I'm going to guess your men's bracket champion is probably Alabama, based on the text messages you sent to me earlier today. Am I right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that is my pick.
Okay.
Is Alabama on the boys' side, and I honestly don't remember my girls' pick right off the top of my head. But
Okay. Any guesses for me?
No, I think you're Duke.
I did not
You-
pick Duke. I didn't pick Arizona either to win, because I too often pick with my head, or my heart, not my head. So I've picked Houston to win it all in pretty much most of my brackets. Having said that, I hope it's not Houston. I hope it's Arizona as part of it. So on the women's side, South Carolina's got the thing locked up. They're rolling. But anyway,
But
enough.
it's a nice distraction,
Yes,
right? I mean,
yes.
a little bit of levity, a little distraction during this time of year is always helpful. As I laughed with some of my softball friends, they were actually out snowblowing the legacy softball and baseball fields the other day. So obviously we're gearing up for spring, and that includes getting snow off a field.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. And I know the state B probably just tipped off as well while we're recording this. So with that, anything else you want to talk about today?
No, not at all.
Okay,
Good to
perfect.
see you.
Thank you for those of you tuned in early. For those of you watching this on Friday, we'll be back next Friday at 2:30 and back to a normal schedule. With that, this has been another All Things Advocacy.